So what's the future look like for SOAP, and what type of venues can we expect in the future from you and Dan, Steve?
I think, well, as soon as we can get a vaccine, we can get more people. One of our favorite things
President Trump says it's on its way in October.
We like doing concerts outside, like a loading dock. We like to shut down the street. We like to have the big parties and things like that. We're looking forward to doing that again, and get back to some of our roots with what Youngstown hasn't met. They've met virtually. It'd be nice to get them back in space and get some more art-related activities going again, and maybe some live paintings and classes that are not sipping paints and generic things, but things that are unique and fun to do. And I think long term, I think we're just keep on keeping on. I like where we're at right now. I like building on that. We hired an events coordinator before all this went down.
First employee.
Yeah.
We had our first employee. So
we still have it. She's great, Vicky. And so we'll continue to build on that. That's been a big burden off.
Well, that's a great addition to your team. I mean, I think that you know, one of the things you got to look at is you know, how you, again, you see both these guys contribute to the community and contribute very well. One of the things Steve and I have talked about, and it's very in the infancy stage, but we talked with Eastern Gateway about a arts walk or an arts trail that goes from Eastern Gateway to the restaurant now, Mocha House, that's at the school, down to Smarts, to Soap, and then on to the Flea, and then on to the,
they call it the Huntington Bank.
is it called, it's not Youngstown Foundation anymore?
Well, the alleyway is Huntington.
Okay, down through there to the amphitheater. So anyway, I think there's some really cool things that could happen there. And, you know.
To go off that, I think that's our biggest, so where we're going to go in the future is our biggest asset is knowing the assets that we have around us and knowing that we have the community college, expanding the work with there, and then the Mahoning River, knowing what's going to go on.
Well, absolutely, that river's untapped.
It's untapped. And so I think creating any, you know, working with the city of Strother, or with Lowell, or working with Youngstown, is making sure that, you know, there's events that can happen with the arts all throughout this area. And we have so many untapped resources that, you know, I love what happened with Summer Festival of the Arts at YSU. I love it. But we have Mill Creek, Wick Park, Crandall Park, that we have all those events at those. We have downtown Youngstown. What's kind of funny is one of our first ideas was to have an art walk in downtown. And we're like, let's charge $10, you know, per table. And we had it filled. And we're like, we don't need that $10. Let's make it free. No one showed up. And we're like, you kidding me? Like, we'll give you the table. We can give you the free space.
I think sometimes you're better off having people pay for it. But before we open the floor up for questions, I want to ask you, Dan, because I don't think we highlighted it enough, but you're actually a potter.
Yeah. So,
and tell us about that.
So I'm a working artist. So most of my income comes from me selling my art. So I do watercolors, I do pottery. Pottery sells all, you know, when it's cold, pottery sells. When it's warm, watercolors sell. And so it's trying to understand the balance of how to make a living, not, you know, as an artist and not having to be dead. They always say, you're not going to make any money until you're dead. And it's funny is because Ron, you, Steve, you all own my pieces. You're all going to be worth making a lot of money when I am dead. But I want to get a piece of that before it's gone. So it's forming the community, it's forming the connections, and it's so, you know, and it's being inspired from what's around you. So my pieces, I make pottery that are textured with different textures that I find from around the community.
It's unique, and I think. You know, just as a side note, I mean, if you come to my house, you'll see both some of Steve's work there and you'll see Dan's work there. In fact, we rearranged some furniture and I shot him a picture of, I said, do you remember making this? And he said, yeah, I remember that piece, and it's up hanging on the wall.
There's tons, and I think that's the connection. I think that's the nice thing with having this is it's an experiment. It's always a fun experiment, but it's always a drive.
Experience and an experiment.
It's an experience, and I think so. It comes back to we're both creative. We both have a lot to say. I mean, one of the funniest things ever is one of our first when we were doing a business plan. We were sitting in front of one of the restaurants and we're just babbling, and we didn't know it was one of the correspondents for NPR. Turns and says, "Would you guys like to do an interview with NPR?" And we should have stuck our feet in our mouths and shut up. But we went on a rant about, and we didn't realize that it was going to be on national NPR. And there we are. And we had tons of that. And that's, the press comes along with all this, and that's nice to be in the public eye. But it's the takeaways, what people take away from both seeing the artwork, but then also being a part of the community.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of cases it's the work that goes into it.
Yeah.
It's a sense of pride when you can show it off. And ultimately, I'm as much a capitalist as anybody. I'd like to make money at it.
That's right. I mean,
and not necessarily make a killing,
no.
but make a living at it.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. I want to open up the floor to any questions we might have. Anybody that would like to ask a question?
If you're on Zoom, you can post a question in the chat. If you want to unmute yourself or unmute yourself.
Yeah, actually, I have a question.
Anybody that's on that wants to ask anything?
Ron, can you hear me?
Oh, Kurt, go ahead.
Yeah, well, since you're both
I'm sorry. We had you
artistic,
unmuted. Go ahead, Kurt.
Ron was talking about getting fulfillment, and I believe in our human lives, also, as Ron said, he gets fulfillment from teaching and leading people in the right direction. But I also see you get fulfillment in creation, because in today's world, there's so much consuming that can happen with Netflix, and we really don't use what we have as in our creative mind to create anything that we'd like. And my question is, what is the most fulfilling artwork that you do to this day that you get the most fulfillment out of? Would you almost consider your business as art, because it's almost creating art in art?
I do. So, so I think in undergrad with art, you learn process oriented, and I think with the business for an opening, I know that we have to paint the walls with fresh white paint. We have to hang the artwork. We have to do the tags. We have to make sure that we price everything right, make sure the tags are done right, and it's a process. And I think that process is that relief of fulfillment. Once something's done, it allows you to tweak that process. And it's the same thing with going back to you doing the ceramics. Is I know that I have to wedge the clay, put the stamps in the clay, fire, glaze it, and back. So it's the process. That kind of
Me personally, I feel a whole lot better about myself if I accomplish something, write a song, take a picture, print it out, have some type of something that is lasting, rather than sit and play video games for 8 hours a night or something like that. So that's nice to do sometimes, but for me, I really find a lot of fulfillment in producing something that is lasting. And the business is part of that.
Good, thanks. Kurt, anything else?
No, that about answered what I just had in mind.
Okay. Any other questions?
To add to that real quick, one of the funny business things that we do, we've gone golfing many times with a bunch of artists. Artists aren't meant to golf. They're not meant to golf whatsoever. But the reason we do it is because you get to know more about the artist and the artist's story. during some simple activity. You know, when someone's failing at something or not doing something well, they're more, you know,
They're like themselves.
they like to know themselves, and so you get to know those things. So there's plenty of times that we've been to stand ball, you know, with an artist, and I'm the worst golfer there is, you know, and I am. And but Steve says we're still doing this because it's a process of getting to know who these artists are and have them open up.
So the question, so the thing is, if you want to make some money playing golf, bet Dan Rauschenbach.
I got you.
All right, well, I guess that kind of wraps things up for tonight. I want to thank the people that sponsor this, you know, our partners at Eastern Gateway, our partners at Westminster College, Westminster Entrepreneurial Center, and Window World, certainly, for our sponsorship. And we'll have this recorded. And if you want access to it, you'll be able to get that. Because now we've got Patrick Moran here and Steve helping us and not me hindering us from a technology standpoint. We seem to have things under control. So that's good. I thank you everybody for attending, and hope you enjoyed our presentation tonight. Have a good evening.